Welcome to another episode of Ask Jason Live. This is a live Q&A show that we do every single week. We're just fielding questions. Megan is my amazing co-host where she just picks questions, fields them to me. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments below or send them in. And let's get to it.
Okay.
Hi, Megan.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. All right, let's see what questions we have. Okay, our first question is from Jesse. All right, I started an agency and I want to market it. Do you think starting a podcast is a good way to do that?
It's a way. A good way. I mean, that's a vague question. Quality of the questions will determine the quality of the answers here. So, it's a way to do it. It's a slow way. I don't think it's like one of those things. It's like, hey, if I need to grow and I need to get clients tomorrow or today, should I start a podcast in order to do it? It's a great way to do it if you have a strategy in place and you're playing a longer tail approach. So, for example, supposing I have an agency for ecom clients, what I would do is I would find my dream 100. So my ideal clients that I'd want to serve, that I'd want to hire me. Realistic, right? Like don't put Nike on there, but pick like realistic brands that you want to work with. And what I would do is I'd reach out to the CMO or the founder or whatever it is and tell them you have an amazing podcast. It's about e-commerce. You talk about e-commerce growth. You've been a fan of the brand for a while and you want to chat with them. See, the reason why we do that is a lot of these brands get pitched over and over and over and over again from different agencies trying to run their marketing, and you won't even get through. But if you say, hey, I want to interview you, then all of a sudden you're coming in from a different angle. And you jump on a call, you build that relationship, you jump on Zoom, you start filming, you do a podcast, you get to know their business a little bit more. You get to show that you're an expert by chiming in and providing value as well. And then you start that relationship off the right way. So the next time I email Todd, the founder of XY Clothing, it's now coming past the gatekeeper and it's now coming from a place of a relationship where, after the podcast, it's going to say, like I run an agency. I've been a big fan of your brand for a while. Kudos to you. Amazing job on what you've been doing. Just a big fan. And even if you just end it there and no call to action, he at least now knows what you do. And you're starting the relationship up right. And then I'd follow up with an email saying, thank you so much for being a guest. Then I would send what's called the shock and awe box. I'd send a box in the mail to them filled with testimonials, little goodies that make you an authority or an expert, results that you've been getting your clients. And that's how I'd start building a relationship and be like, hey, look, you came on, and even more so after this podcast, I became an even bigger fan of your brand. And I truly believe we could add value. Would you be open to us taking a look at your account? And that's how you start building a relationship. So like I said, podcast is a great way to do it because you cut through the gatekeeper, but it's a longer tail approach.
Okay. Right. Next question. I have trouble pricing myself because some tasks take a short time and I don't know what to charge. Do I charge per hour or per project? And that's from Natalie.
You have a tough time charging and you don't know how to charge when you do things in a short time. Should you charge per hour? Look, I'm not a big fan of the hourly charging because at the end of the day, you charge for the results you're getting them. That's it. I'm being like, you go to a dentist and you don't care that the root canal takes 3 minutes or 6.5 hours. Like, I mean, you do care. You want to be out in 3 minutes, right? You don't want to sit in that chair for 6.5 hours. So, but you don't sit there and you don't care that you're paying and you're sitting there saying, oh, I'm paying this amount. It was only 3 minutes, because you're not paying for the 3 minutes. What I want everyone to understand is when you hire somebody, when you hire me, when you hire an expert, when you hire a plumber, when you hire a lawyer, when you hire all this, you're not hiring for the moment that they got there. You're hiring for their expertise and years they've spent building up that expertise. It's that backlog of what they've accomplished and what they've been able to do. That's what they're charging for. They're charging for the past that made them the expert as well inside there. So, but at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter. People pay for results. So you could charge $100,000 if you're solving, $1 million problem. People will gladly pay you $100,000 to make them $1 million. So the price doesn't really matter. It's how big of a problem are you solving? What's that worth to the people you're charging? And if you're having a hard time selling, $3,000 services, to someone, then you're just not finding the problem that's big enough for that person for you to charge the 3,000. Because if their problem that you're going to solve is a $100,000 problem, they should gladly pay you $3,000. And if you're a brand listening to this, you should gladly pay anyone who's going to solve your problem, $100,000 problem. You should gladly pay them $3,000. So I don't think it matters based off that, and I wouldn't charge by time. I'd charge for the result that you're trying to get the people, or the problem that you're trying to solve. And in terms of doing it fast, that doesn't play into anything. I mean, whether an ad takes us, 2 days to build or an hour to build is irrelevant to how we bill our clients. In the same way, if you hire me for coaching and I'm able to fix a big problem of yours in a 5-minute call, does that mean you should pay less because it wasn't a 4-hour problem that I was able to solve? You're paying for the fact that I know how to solve a problem in 5 minutes and not 4 hours. And you should be happy about that.
Okay, this one is from John. John asks, what's something you learned in the last 3 months that will change your business?
Definitely something around mindset for sure, because that's the rabbit hole I've been on for for the last 5 months, 4 months. I'd say probably how you talk to yourself matters a lot. The words you use matter a lot. How you frame certain situations matter. So like just the way of thinking. Be conscious of the words you're using, and especially how you talk about yourself. I did a post about this the other day, that if you cared about the words you use when you talk about yourself, to yourself and about yourself, as you did about random strangers on the internet caring about what you say, you'd be way far ahead, way further ahead, I should say. So I think that's probably, that's still something I'm practicing and learning, that the words matter. And goals. Do you have a big goal? And if you don't, that could probably be a reason why you're not moving forward, because you don't have something you're moving towards. I've seen this a lot. That's something that happened with me recently. This because you have context into my life, and know that I pay very handsomely for coaching. And one of the things that we went over is, in certain area, I felt I was looping. I felt I was, just not moving forward as fast as I thought. And we went through goals, and I'm like, yeah, so I'm doing this so I could do X, Y, Z. And I named my goals. And he's like, but you could do all those already. And when you start reflecting on it, you're like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And it's no wonder why you're not moving forward, because you already hit the goals and the targets that you first had for yourself in the first place. So if you don't recalibrate and think of something bigger to move you forward, then your brain will just get confused, because it's like, you're telling me that you want this, but you already have it. So I don't understand. AI is very, very popular right now, Chat GPT. So it's the prompts, right? The prompts matter. So if you don't input the right prompt, then the quality of the answer is going to suck. So if you don't input the right goal, and you're telling your brain something that you already have, then it doesn't know how to compute that, and it's just going to stay confused. And that's why a lot of times people stay confused. So, just how the mind works, and the ability to be cognizant on how I use my words and my thoughts, and what I input into my brain from external forces and from internal forces, what I input into my mind. That's probably the biggest lesson that I've really honed in on in the last 3 months for sure.
Okay. All right. Okay. What's more important, marketing or sales? The ad or the website? And that question is from Ben.
They're both important. One comes before the other, though, right? So I've had fights with people who are sales trainers about this all the time, because I say marketing matters most, and they're like, no, sales matter most. I'm like, okay, well, how are you getting the sale? Like, well, you have to get in front of people. I'm like, there you go. So that's marketing. Because if you don't get in front of anybody, you have nothing to sell them. So marketing is the first step in all this. So the marketing cycle precedes the sales cycle, i.e., you have to get in front of people. And now what everyone assumes of that is, you're telling me Facebook advertising is more important than sales. No, that's one channel of marketing, but I'm telling you that the idea of getting in front of people is the most important part, because without it, you don't have a business. Case in point, all the brands during COVID, when things dried up and they pulled their ad spend back, sales dried up and they weren't going anywhere. Versus the brands we worked with, and when they tripled their ad spend and got in front of more people, their sales went up. The more people you get in front of, the more opportunity you have to make sales. So it's not saying that marketing is way more important than sales, but it is what comes first. So I'd focus on that, because you could be the best salesperson in the world, but if you're talking to nobody, it doesn't really matter. Flip side is, if you get in front of 1 million people and you're a horrible salesperson, your numbers are more towards your favor, of at least closing one, right? Like, you could be the worst salesperson. You could luckily land on a closed deal if you get in front of the right people. So both matter, both are important. The ad or the website, I mean, the ad is what drives them to the website. At the end of the day, the website has to do its job and close the people. So the ad's the important part in getting to sell the click, right? People have to understand that marketing isn't sales. Marketing's job is to sell the opportunity, to sell the click to the website. It's everything else that after that matters. And we live in an age where people get so tied up. How come my Facebook ads aren't making money? The truth is, like, if you think about it, and I'm going to be very, say something controversial here, is that it's not a sales platform. And yes, I know it should be making money, and I look at it and I want to make money off of it. I look at it that way. But if everything else is tied up perfectly, then it's great. If I have the most brilliant marketing, but my website sucks and no one converts, it doesn't matter how good I was at marketing, it's just not going to work. So I would lean more towards marketing over sales on that side of what's more important, but they're equally very, very important. Just one comes before the other.
Yeah.
And rant. And ramble. And the ramble there.
Okay. All right. So we have a question from Stephanie. What's something in business that's so easy to get once you get it, but very hard to put into place?
Ooh, good question. Two things come to mind. One is that investing in growth is super important. If you think about it, like, everyone sits there and says, yeah, obviously you have to invest money in order to grow your business. And then when I come to ask you for money to invest in your business, everyone sits there and says, no, I can't do that, or I don't have it, or I don't do it. So it's one of those things that's easier said than done, which I never understood, because everyone understands that basic principle. I've never met someone who sat there and said, no, I don't need to invest in my business in order to grow it. But all those people never invest in their business in order to grow it. So it's kind of a little bit, it's a little weird. No, like, you need to invest in your business to grow it. I believe that, but I'm not going to invest in my business to grow it. So so that's a big one. But another one that comes to mind is that compounding is a magical force in your business. And what I mean by that is, everyone wants to grow their business, everyone wants to get better, but they want to go all in on one thing. But if you just got 10% better in different areas, from awareness to lead generation to conversion to price to buying frequency, if you just got incrementally better in those areas, you have a compounding growth that goes on and on and on, that just multiplies over time, versus sitting there saying, oh, I'm just going to focus on this one area. and go all in and get 100% better. 100% better in something's very hard, but it's very easy to get 10% better in a lot of different areas. And if you get 10% better in a lot of different areas, it will lead to a bigger growth than you getting 100% better in one area. If you just keep trying to get 10% better, 10% better, 1% better on yourself every single day, has a huge, huge compounding effect. So I think if I told you double your business, you sit there and say that's hard. But if I said get 10% better in all these different areas, you could say that's easy. So once you get it, I think that's a perfect example of something that's easy to understand once you get it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, so now it's time for my question.
Favorite time.
Question.
That's the one. That's time.
Okay. Right. What is the most important thing to keep in mind when you're going to create a marketing strategy?
Good question, Megan. The most important part is, actually, let me stop for a second. What do you think is the most important part? Let me throw you under the bus here for a second. What do you think the most important part is?
I mean, I would say probably just knowing your audience. I feel like that's very important.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that plays into what I was going to say is that know what your goal is. If you know your strategy, that's the most important part of marketing thing. You can know your audience. Knowing your audience is part of your goal, but that comes from knowing your goal and knowing what result you want. Before you spend $1 on any ad or any marketing strategy, have an end result. What does it look like? What's winning? What does winning look like? What's the strategy involved here? Because otherwise it's very easy to go down the rabbit hole of, is this working? Is this not working? It goes back to even what I just said before about, the most important thing I learned for myself, and that can propel the business is have a goal. Is you need some sort of direction. Otherwise you're like that. I've said this many times. You're like the cat in Alice in Wonderland, where Alice sits and says, like, what direction should I go? And the cat says, what direction do you want to go in? Alice says, I don't care. And the cat says, well, then it doesn't matter which direction you choose. Right. So I think a lot of times brands sit there and go into marketing without that. And then they just spin around. They're like, no, that's not the result I was looking for. Well, what result were you looking for? I don't know, not that. And I don't know, not that isn't, I want that. Not knowing what you don't want is good, but knowing what you want is better.
Okay. I like that answer.
I like that question.
And yeah, that looks like that's all of our questions for this episode.
Awesome. Well, see you guys next week. Yeah, next week. I think we're good next week. Next week we're back. Thank you, Megan, as always, and see you guys all next week. Submit your questions. Let me know.
Yeah. Bye.